I'm caught in two minds with this. I don't know if you are, Craig, as well. I really like being 4 hours away. Like this for you, Craig, it's now 5 instead of 6. That's nice. Losing the hour is devastating, especially because I've sort of stayed up till nearly 1 a.m. playing Civilization 7 the last 2 nights, and I'm not feeling the best. And I could have done with the clock going the other way to buy me a bit more time, and instead it's sold me out. So yeah, outside of that, but yeah, the game itself, I was ready to be angry. I was ready to be sad and angry. I didn't know what to do with the emotion I was presented with. Craig, what about you?
Yeah, so yeah, it's the clocks are always weird, like it's because the UK always just changes another time, so like it just messes up everyone's calendars. It's kind of annoying, and the dog is begging for food like at the wrong times now for a couple of days. But yeah, I was the same way. Like you get to what 93, 94 minutes, we'll get into it. But yeah, I was also ready to lament what we saw because despite the result, I was saying to Josh just off screen, it's a bang average game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I've just watched Bournemouth do the exact same thing twice in a game here. We're recording at 3:00 on Sunday, and Bournemouth have just gone 2-0 up. Their first goal was almost a carbon copy of the one that Fulham scored against us yesterday, so that seems to be the way forward. Talking of the lineups, though, looking at it, big thing for us was Mitoma being available, right? Knee scan on like the Monday, Tuesday. Everybody very worried. I went on the Fulhamish podcast on Thursday, and they were very excited about the idea of Mitoma not being available. Understandably, right? I think the last couple of games that they'd seen, he was doing the stuff he did against Newcastle and Chelsea, so they were quite happy to see him not available, possibly. But he was, and straight in the starting lineup. The only change really was an enforced one, and that was Lamptey out due to his second yellow. Ayari in and Hinchelwood moving to right back. There was some conversations maybe about Weaver coming in at right back and Hinchelwood keeping himself in the midfield. But ultimately, I think keeping the team as consistent and together as possible with a 5-win streak was probably the right choice. How are you feeling about that, knowing that we'd had extra time, knowing that they'd had extra time and penalties? What sort of game were you guys expecting at home to Fulham with the lineup remaining pretty similar? The streak we're on, the streak they were on against us. How are you expecting it to go once you'd seen the availability that we had?
I fully expected this game to feel a little bit leggy and lethargic, despite the fact that it was still 6 days. 6 days is enough for most of these players to kind of get fit and ready again for another game. But as you say, extra time and all that jazz. It was a leggy and lethargic game. I felt like we felt very pedestrian for most of it. I didn't think we'd be as pedestrian as we saw. Just given the history between these sides, recent history, in the sense that we've, as you sort of alluded to, feel like we've had this curse with Fulham and we've just not been able to figure it out. So you sort of felt, let's come out. They're right next to us in the table. Let's really take this game by the scruff of the neck. And what happened? We were asleep at the wheel for the first 10 minutes, just like we always are. And what else happened? We conceded the first goal against the run of play. And I know I'm not really answering your question anymore, but the point is, we sort of got to this position where we're like, oh God, how many times have we seen this one? And you sort of felt like after all the goodwill and all the momentum that had been created over the last few games, oh, is the bubble gonna burst here? Now all of these things have sort of conspired to happen. And thankfully not. And I think it was one of those ones too, where you mentioned Mitoma coming back as being a massive bonus. Typically it is, but he's also, the outcome has actually been, Mitoma's been pretty bang average to poor the last 2 games for his standard. And we talked about that in the Newcastle game, I believe, where we sort of discussed this idea that we don't need to rely on our quote unquote game winners to really do everything for us, because the quality elsewhere and the performances that we're seeing throughout the squad have managed to carry us through. We saw a victory yesterday that felt like no one really stood out, in my opinion. and we managed to just drag ourselves over the line and get 3 points. And as you said, we're recording at a weird time, but before we went on air, we were goal difference away from competing in the Champions League with 10 games left in the season.
That's wild, isn't it? Just to even think about. I think, yeah, we're everyone sharing the league tables yesterday as well, and just 6 in a row is not to be sniffed at. But I agree with you on yesterday. When it comes to the team sheet, I also agree with you, Josh. It's just you don't fix what isn't broke, right? Like you have to make a change because Lamptey got sent off. Like, it is what it is. I thought Hinshelwood at right back was an okay idea because I think one of their main outlets was going to be sort of down that side with Anthony Robinson as well. So I was glad to see Minte actually double team on that because I think he kept him fairly quiet. But I think
he was very good defensively again, Minte.
Yeah, very good. So like that was my main concern when I saw it was like, okay, Hinshelwood against Robinson and anyone that transfers over to that left wing, whether Iwobi comes onto that side or not, like I thought we might have a problem. But luckily, yeah, again, Minte's been excellent defensively, erratic attacking wise, right? But like he's very solid and reliable from a defensive side of things. There's a couple of tackles he put in. I was like, are you sure this guy's not a right back? Because it's very impressive. Anyway, yeah, team sheet was fine, right? I think it's the best team that you could put out. I agree with you on Matoma as well. I don't know if it's time for him to have a rest or for him to come out a little bit. I thought Adingra coming on was actually okay as well. And you have a solid choice there in that left wing to rotate. But yeah, team sheet wise was all good. What about Josh? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, just funny you say that. Like, we very almost had a game winner from Adingra with about his first touch of the game, didn't we? So yeah. He offers something. I know Adam gets a little bit frustrated with his cut inside immediately, but he's obviously got quality to carry Ivory Coast to a AFCON when he was unbelievable there. So yeah, it was really good. I was the same as you guys. Keep it as consistent as possible. I was just, there was a lot of times yesterday where it has to have been intentional, but yesterday Matoma and Purvis were left back and left winger. Very clear. They defended down the left. As Stephen Mitchell says in the chat, whether Purvis did a good job at that or not, it's remained to be seen, right? Like Purvis looked like he struggled yesterday, as did Matoma really in a lot of ways. And Ayari was not, the entire triangle was not having a great day. Luckily for us, Fulham didn't have a great day either, right? So it just kind of evened itself out. There was one moment of magic that led to a goal for them, and then, likewise for us. But for me, I'm not sure what the game plan was, because there was quite a few times where Hinshelwood was playing full-on centre midfielder. Like he inverted to a level I've never seen a fullback invert before, right? Like I was just like, what are we doing? Because Minte is now playing right wing back. But it was like, it didn't seem like it was very structured or solid. Like there was some worrying times down that right hand side when they had pinged those long balls down there, and I was like, where is Hinshelwood? And he's just hanging around in the middle of the park, and I was like, Minte now has to defend against two people. Thankfully, as Craig said, the dude is A, so rapid it's unbelievable, and B, actually seems to be putting in right back S tackles that we're actually got away with it really. But other than that, it was great. It was just the Hinch moving in thing was just very weird to me. First half an hour, I mean, other than a very slow start, as you say, I feel like after that, we kind of turned the screw on them a little bit. We dominated possession for all that's worth these days. We created some decent chances. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, JP thwacks the ball out to the left-hand side that's way too short. And Iwobi just decides to run almost 60 yards length of the field. Webster's dragged out. Estepinian can't keep up with him. Ayari can't keep up with him. Mitoma can't keep up with him. Webster drags himself way out of position, can't get there in time. And Iwobi just pops it straight over to Raul Jimenez and just absolutely does Van Hecke and pops it into the back of the net. Totally against the run of play, as you say. At that point, I felt like I was like, oh my God, if they were in blue, I think I was watching an Everton game again. It felt like I'd gone straight back to that.
Yeah, I started having a bit of an existential crisis. And I think I put in our chat about how I was, so what's the point of possession anymore? if the game has shifted so much, and I will talk about this just a little bit, but it's just, I don't think I like this iteration of football, this de-evolution of football, where it's sort of just this forest approach to playing. Like, don't bother trying to play anymore. Just sit back and be solid and structured, which they were. Fulham were not particularly great at creating chances yesterday, but my word, were they defensively structured in a way which was incredibly frustrating. It felt like we had absolutely no time on the ball in attacking positions. It felt like we had zero creativity or space. And I think I mentioned something along the lines of, how are they creating this much pressure on us in the midfield and defense, despite the fact that they basically were playing a 5-back setup without the ball? They were very, very, very well drilled in that regard. But I despise it. I really hate it, because no matter what we try and do, it's like, yeah, okay, keep the ball, play it around. You saw it at the end of the game. If we didn't get that penalty, Josh, you were there. Everyone was going out of their minds. Like, why do you keep passing it back? It felt pottery again, didn't it? Stop passing it back. Just get the ball in the box. Just do anything. And it was just going back to Adam Webster, going back over here, pass it sideways. No one could do anything. And it's such a frustrating way of playing. And then, of course, yeah, they just run up the other end, murk a few people and score. And you're just like, how is this okay? Very good from Iwobi, who suddenly turned out to be some kind of renaissance player after basically failing in previous places he's been, to Raul Jimenez, who everyone thought his career was over. So we just got absolutely done in by two guys that we sort of thought were worthless footballers. 7
goals, 4 assists for Iwobi this year. So yeah, very
good season. Bizarre. Defensively, it was shocking. The players tracking back. We had 3 players trying to do something to Iwobi. He's not even the fastest player in football, really, is it? He's not that fast. He's just stocky. No one could tackle him. That's where you sort of wanted someone that wasn't Ayaru playing in that role. I think Weaver probably would have done something there, bodied him out of the way. I think Diego Gomez, being dogged as he is, probably would have done something there as well. And yeah, Van Hecke, bit of a moment for him, wasn't it? But bizarrely, I don't know about you, Craig, but if I was forced at some point to give a man of the match, it might be Van Hecke for me, despite the fact he cost us the goal.
Yeah, he completely lost flight of it, didn't he? I think he just sort of didn't really understand where the ball was going or where his sort of what his situation was. And I think it's an okay finish by Raul Jimenez. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we listen to the US commentators, right? When we listen to it, like, just, you know, waxing lyrical about the touch, which I agree with, but then the finish, I think Verbruggen could have done better with as well. But at that close range, like, it's a gamble. So, but yeah, I think Van Hecke could have done better there. I think he made amends very quickly, which is great. And I think on the whole, I thought he was very good, as always. Just lost flight of the ball. But I think, to Estepinian and to Ayari and stuff, that ball shouldn't be coming in anyway, right? From that sort of run and that sort of area, is that a ball coming into the box that early into a transition shouldn't be happening. So the ball shouldn't have been hit in the first place. Van Hecke doesn't deal with it. And you're right. Like, it's sort of, you feel like we've seen this movie before, right? Like, it's sort of against the run of play. We get hit on the break. You go, okay, now this is another 60, 65 minutes of us trying to break down a team that's already playing 5 at the back. Yeah, it kind of looked bleak from the goal, but luckily that changed with the Van Hecke header.
You mean to tell me a Mexican striker was getting amped up beyond belief on a US TV stream? No way.
Crazy, isn't it? I'm surprised they didn't mention Anthony Robinson more as well. Yeah, that's
because Minte had him in his back pocket for half of the game.
I'll tell you what, though, Minte got bodied by Bassi a lot.
Calvin Bassey's a player. I was really impressed with him yesterday.
Weren't we rumoured to try and be going for him?
We were well in there, from what I can gather. We were well in there. It sounds like Fulham just offered to pay a lot more wages, and we moved away from him because of that, which is fair enough, I think. I think he was that kind of centre-back we were trying to grab, but didn't work out. But yeah, I thought it was just once again, we're watching the same story go over and over. And special mention for Minte, who I thought played pretty well yesterday, but his corners were absolute dog shit. Like, I do not want to see Yankuba Minte take another corner in my life. And when we get a free kick in like a pretty just random ass position in the middle of the park, right? Like, there wasn't anything you'd expect to come from it. It was just kind of, I expected us to play it short quickly, right? Like classic Brighton, play it short, play it quick, get pressed, pass back to Bart, move on, start the cycle again. But Ayari played a totally different ball, and he played a few of them after that from set pieces. Very high, very lofted, fair bit of backspin on it, and it just drifted. And I do not know to this day. I've watched it about 8 times. I still don't know how Van Hecke got so open. But unbelievably poor defending. We lament our defending. They were fully on display there. And I think it's probably why that European race is so open, because we're all prone to this stuff. Like, we're all sitting here like throwing our hands up at the way we deal with things sometimes. But I think every single team in that mix is probably having moments like ours where we're like, what is, like, because that was one of those what is that moments. And what a header for him. I mean, he was fully at fault for the first goal. So just scores his first ever Albion goal 6 minutes later to make up for it. Okay, cool. And unbelievable header. And he put curve on it. I don't know. Like, it was one of the most insane headers I've ever seen. Like, the power behind it and it was just excellent. And I still just don't know how he was left so wide open. But it was really important, wasn't it? 5 minutes before halftime, 6 minutes after the goal. Like, it was basically as perfect a timing as you can get, like, to get that equalizer.
I truly believe this is the only way we were able to salvage anything from the game. If you don't score that goal, Fulham come out second half and they just frustrate you forever. And you can play for 4 hours and you're still not going to do anything. That had to happen. It had to happen. The defending was interesting because you could actually, despite the fact that we just talked Bassi up, you could arguably blame Bassi here, because we created some weird overload on the back side of the box. I'm looking at it now. We had 4 players over there and Bournemouth were defending with 2. I don't know why, because we had Webster, Van Hecke, and Hinshelwood back there. You could argue about 3 most threatening players from a set piece. I'm including Hinshelwood there just because he, face or not, he seems to get on the end of stuff. And they just decided, you know what, let's not worry about all your threatening players from this set piece. We're going to put 5 players on the penalty spot where you've only got João Pedro and 1 runner. It was shocking from them. And then Bassi basically picks up the wrong player. I think it might be Hinshelwood or someone else, or Ira has taken it. He's running the other way back towards our goal. Bassi tracks him instead of running towards his own goal. It was really laughably poor. I can only assume they were trying to play offside, and it just went horrendously wrong. But yeah, weird header. Weird, like looping, curved outside of the boot, like curler into the top corner. It was like you couldn't have placed the header any better for his first goal and a bit of a redemption from his mistake. A little posting in header. That ain't too bad. We started doing stuff from set pieces, Craig. But
yeah.
What's going on?
So. No idea. Well, the harbingers of the apocalypse, maybe. But it's just it's a good header. I think, like, what is it, like 12, 13 yards out? And like Josh said, like those floated sort of, lofted crosses in just to try and give somebody a chance to do something with it. So you have to get on the end of it first, but then put the power on it as well, and then direct it in the right area. I mean, whether you're free or not, that takes a very special skill. So I was just happy for him as well, because I think he's been playing out of his skin. I think we talk about him all the time and giving a very consistent performances all the time. I think he said in his presser afterwards, like, the first one's the hardest, then hopefully it'll continue to flow. If he's continuing to be a threat from those set pieces, and you've got another arrow in your quiver, haven't you? So let's hope that continues, because at the moment, we're so used to our corners and our crosses coming from absolute nothing. So the fact that we're able to actually score from crosses, because we've seen it the last couple of games now where we have been a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, 2 things on this. One, do you guys, So A, I was at the game. B, I had a long old drive home, like 4 hours, get out of the car park and then driving home. So I didn't even get to look at what Andy Naylor or anyone else says. Any reason? Well, like, was there any reason
Lucky
given
you.
why? Was there any reason why Gruder wasn't on the bench yesterday? Did you guys find that out?
I didn't see anything.
You're asking the wrong guys here.
We'll just have to wait and see for his next presser. Then I'm sure he'll get asked the question, because I was expecting Gruder to be on the bench. I mean, he basically was the catalyst that got us through the Newcastle game, right? So like, I was surprised to not see him there. He must have picked something up.
Well, we got surprised by this last week, Josh, didn't we? We were like, "Oh, why has O'Reilly been dropped?" And in fact, we found out afterwards that he was sick with stomach bug or something,
and now has a knee injury. Yeah, poor guy, man. That's someone who, despite however the season ends, is ready for it to be done. Like,
worst possible season he could have had.
Yeah, he had 8 minutes of good, and then got absolutely slaughtered by a guy in Crawley. Came back, scored the winner against City, and then got injured again perennially over nonsense stuff. It's so shit for him. But one of those moments that leads back to the set pieces and the way we're starting to become more effective on them, that you get to see at the game that you don't get to see on the highlights on the ground. And actually, this is the missus you've got to thank for this. Eagle Eye Brittany. Ayari did not join them in the celebrations. He belted over to the coach's bench and hugged one of the coaches there. Very happy indeed. So there must be some set piece coaching going on, because Ayari didn't even try to celebrate with the players. He literally turned and absolutely horsed it to who I would assume is a set piece coach and celebrated with him. So that's obviously something they've worked on. And we're obviously seeing some fruits now, but it's something you didn't see on the TV at any angle. But yeah, it was noted at the Amex that Ayari was absolutely buzzing with it. So we may see more of those coming forward, some weird ones where we think, how the hell did they get open? Turns out it wasn't an accident. It seems to be something we're working on actively. So
I can't believe we actually have someone thinking about this now, because we wouldn't be remiss if you'd have said in the last 2-3 seasons that if someone turned around and said Gully is the set piece coach, like, you would have probably gone, yeah, it makes sense. So that's great, because it's been, as you said, Craig, it's been so appalling for as long as we can all remember set piece stuff, offensively and defensively. It's been really surprising. While we're talking about Van Hecke, just very quickly, let's continue to go back and say how wrong we were about Adam Webster, because the guy's been excellent, and everyone is going to keep talking about Dunk can't come back in. We talked at the start of the pod about how you don't change something that's working with the lineup. I will say, just be careful in regards to the fact that everyone in this fan base said Webster basically shouldn't really be playing anymore, doesn't fit into this system, and isn't maybe at this level. Now everyone is saying that about Lewis Dunk. He's getting too injured. He's lost a step. Can't bring him back in. Everyone else is playing too well. We might get a little renaissance from Lewis Dunk as well. So don't write him off just yet. But Adam Webster has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he even got a little donkey chest pass back in there as well. I remember seeing that. So I was like, oh, there you go. So yeah, I agree. I think, 99% of this fan base would have said he's not good enough, and that, he can't do the job that we require anymore. And we're all wrong. That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah. To give you an idea of how dull that football game was, especially for the first half, there was about 4 minutes of conversation at the end of the first half in amongst the crowd around me that I could hear, basically just saying that, like, Van Hecke's header was phenomenal. People were watching it back on replays, right? They've got like a highlight here, there. And the rest of the 10 minutes was just laughing at Liverpool. There just wasn't that much more to talk about. It was just more laughing at the fact that Liverpool were 1-0 down at home to Southampton. So comes out for the second half. And honestly, it was a better second half from the Albion, I thought. I thought they got leggier quicker. I'm not sure about you guys, but from my perspective, they lost a step quicker than we did. I think Hertzler in the post-match talked about how he was very happy with the team being very fit, felt they were a fit team. I thought we looked the better side in the second half. All that said, it was still only like okay. We dominated possession again, 55%, great. Had more shots, fine, but like we didn't really create a whole bunch, did we? Like it felt like it was all a lot of possession without doing much. And as you say, Adam, that last couple of minutes, we'll get into that right when we get to the goal itself. But like there was frustrations earlier on than that of just like, come on, boys, like go forward a little bit. Look like you want to do something. And I mean, looking at Fulham, they didn't seem that bothered either, did they? There was multiple times yesterday where I thought, you're time wasting at 1-1, guys. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, whatever they're doing now, it's worked for them, because aren't they the second best side away from home? No, their form recently, hadn't they won a bunch on the bounce away from home, Fulham? If you look at the table, if you're only taking into account away games, Fulham are 6th in the league. Bizarrely, we're now just on the same points as them.
I was going to say we're level with them.
Yeah. So we're, if anything, you would have put your money on Fulham in yesterday's game, just given that scenario. But yeah, we were definitely better in the second half. Definitely better, undeniably. I mean, if you look at things like expected goals, if you care about that stuff, first half, we were way off it. 0.28 expected goals. Fulham had 0.66. Second half, we had 1.26 to their 0.25. So very different in that regard. We had a number of chances in that second half that stand out to me. João Pedro had one where the ball was dinked over from Ruta, I think it was, and he kind of went wide. We had the 2 disallowed goals, wasn't it? Because you had the ball in, Minter ran in behind, crossed in, and Matoma finished it. You then also had Adam Webster's incredible ball to Adingra, who'd just come on, and he slotted it home really comfortably. That was also, so those aren't included in that data. So yeah, it was definitely a better half from us in the second half. But again, it felt like one of those ones where we were just like the wolf trying to blow the little piggy's house down and nothing was happening. But João Pedro, what he's shown in the last 2 games is that man is just going to battle through and he's going to fight right until the end. And I think it was, someone said this somewhere about Hertzler berating João Pedro in the Newcastle game for not pressing or not trying hard enough, not pushing hard enough. Maybe Robin had heard it. But we saw this like warrior just like getting battered against Newcastle and still going and still going. Different type of game yesterday. But who else is going to be there at the end of the game and earning the penalty and sliding it home? It's him. And I don't know. We're able at the moment, it seems, in comparison to early on in the season, where we're able to take disappointing performances, average performances, and still walk away with points. And that is a stark difference to what it was like a month, 2 months ago.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? I think you look over the last, 4, 5, 6 games. I think, you dispatch quite a bad Southampton side quite easily. But otherwise, you've seen some average to okay performances, right? You're not playing these other teams off the park, but you're still getting those points and you're still picking up wins. I think that's the difference that we're seeing. And I think, Adam, you've alluded to it before, is that Nottingham Forest result is really a kick up the backside of what we needed to do, or maybe something we needed to change, because the current regime of things just wasn't working, right? So I think, yeah. And going back to your possession-based thing as well, is that we've seen a lot less possession. And I know we had 53 in this game, but like on the course of it, we're not having the ball as much. But coming to João Pedro, yeah, he's just needed, right? It's just a necessary addition to this team where he can make something out of nothing. And we've talked about that before, in being able to create something out of nothing so that you can turn these average to okay performances into good results. And that's the difference here, is that you can go full Graham Potter and you can have 75% possession and you can have 20 shots from outside the box. But again, it doesn't translate if you're able to just, create a bit of magic. And that's why you've got your Matomas, your Mintes, your Adingras, in being able to create something out of nothing so that you come out of a 5 out of 10 performance with more points.
really tight for Minte's offside as well. Adingra's very much offside, right? Like it was a good yard offside, but the Minte one was very tight after I saw it on the replays. But yeah, the goals and the creation was there. It was a lot better. And Pedro, you've all basically said all that needs to be said, really. Like, and it goes back ages since he basically started with us, right? Like, I mean, look at that Marseille game at home in December. Like, very average performance, very much a case of two teams that were playing as tight as possible. Who was it who steps up after a pretty anonymous game? João Pedro to slam it into the goal. Like, it's just who he is. And he's only so young. Like, that kind of step up in the moment gene, you can't train it. Like, he has it. And yeah, it was interesting when we talked about that, because I think quite a few fans watching it on the TV and in person felt that Hertzler was losing his shit at Pedro because he was going down a lot towards the end. With cramp and well, just cramp actually, because he was absolutely
Newcastle,
knackered, in Newcastle. But I don't know if you guys saw it, but the speech in the dressing room afterwards, it could not have been more clear that Hertzler was absolutely not upset with Pedro or his behavior. He basically used him as the example of like the consummate warrior, like that he wants every player on that pitch to look at and be like, holy shit, that guy's a monster. Like, he was very complimentary. He took the piss a little bit, right? But like, that's what you're going to do in a locker room full of football players, which was an absolute disgrace of an away locker room, by the way. If you've not seen the video, you should go watch it just for that alone. But
so sad. It's so bleak. The tiles were coming out. Apparently, Shearer made the Newcastle players use that as their home dressing room when he was manager, because he wanted the intimacy that it created. But that's why it was shit, probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I enjoyed part of that video. It was just Verbruggen like going behind the absolute animals, resting up the room, just tidily putting the tiles back with his hands. Excellent. It was just excellent content. But I'll list off a couple of things that really stood out to me yesterday. Diego Gomez, Solly March, Danny Welbeck, Simon Adingra, and Mats Wiefer. Holy depth, Batman. Like, what a difference an actual bench makes, guys. Like, because that was a set of substitutions that you would want to make anywhere against anyone, isn't it? Like, it's these players becoming fit again. It's just you can't ask for more than that. Like, the depth is incredibly impressive, isn't it? Once we've got these boys ready to go.
Yeah, and it's the fact that he's using them, right? That you obviously you need the depth to have the option of bringing them on. But I think we've also spoken about this a couple of times as well. So just going back to the well, but like being able to use them and actually use them at the right times and make good substitutions at the right moments in those games, right? Like, I think if the penalty doesn't happen, I get it, right? You draw, we're kind of upset at an average performance, but you have to be using those players. You have to bring them on. And I feel Hertzler is doing a really good job in bringing them on at the right time. And, you know, again, having those players at your disposal as well and using them at the right time in the right moments to give yourself the best chance of squeaking out a penalty or getting a last minute winner. You saw it with Adingra's disallowed goal. Just, you know, having someone that can come off the bench and do something like that, even if he was incredibly offside, is something that you do need and something that we haven't had. And you look back to the 200 odd mil that we spent in the summer. This is where it works, right? This is a squad-based game where you need 5 subs to come on and make a difference, and increase the tempo and to keep the pressure on. And ultimately, it worked. So it's using them as well. And I think the Hertzler is doing a great job in that.
As you're talking there, Kepa did the same thing that he did against us again. He's not learned from his mistake. A runner has run at him and is just going to run the ball off the pitch, and he's cracked him in the legs and given a penalty away. And Spurs are now equalised after being 2-0 down to Bournemouth, and Ange Postecoglou potentially saves his job for another week.
He's absolutely dogged him with that pen as well, ain't he?
Yeah,
it's a disgrace.
I'm hold on. Let me.
You're a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Thrilling podcasting content here.
Yeah, no, everyone's loving. Yeah, oh no, that is horrid. That is horrid. But no, I'm bringing this up not just because I'm watching it right now, but that is massive for us because Bournemouth only getting a point out of this game is gigantic. Just given the fact that I think if they won, aren't we equal on points?
They would go above us on goal difference, yeah.
Right. So this moment could be potentially defining in the season, just given our European fortunes. So
I mean, especially with City away next, right? Like, we'll get to that, but like these teams around us not doing so well this week is huge for what is essentially our toughest fixture of the season outside of Liverpool away. Despite what form City are in, City at home are still like the Man City we generally know, right? They are still very dangerous. Like, they're not a team you want to be playing. At the Amex, different story. But right now, you still don't exactly want to be going to the Etihad, no matter what run of form you're on. But let's talk the final goal. I mean, I think it was 95th minute, like, of 5 that it was awarded. But before that, you're exactly right, Adam, in that the frustration was there. Like, it was like, I feel like everyone around me was losing their shit. Like, I was just like, attack. Like,
I was stood up at home
like,
shouting at my TV. I don't do that very often.
I haven't heard the Amex get that agitated. I'm not attacking since De Zerbi, and it was one of the European games at home. And I don't know which one it was, but we were getting very frustrated about not attacking. Probably was Athens, I think. But like, we were just, it was huge amounts of frustration, and it was the same here. It was just like people were infuriated. And obviously the balls comes down that side. And I think it was Harrison Reed that gave it away, wasn't it? And he had been on the pitch for about 9 minutes, and goes to clear the ball and clears João Pedro instead. As you said, Adam, who do you want in that final moment? How many players in football are going to make that burst of pace and effort to jump in, nick that ball away at the last minute, and win a penalty in that position? Absolutely a stonewall pen. No one I heard had any complaints unless they're a Fulham fan, right? Like, I listened to a little bit of TalkSport on the way home. They didn't even try and bait discussion on it. It was so obvious. Match of the day, all agreed. Everybody I could see agreed. It was just one of those. It was unfortunate for Harrison Reed, right? Like, it's harsh on any player, but like, it's also funny because it's not us. And then, as you say, just to add to that, not only do you want him to be there to win this penalty, and that's the guy you expect to be the guy bursting forward to win the penalty, who else do you want stepping up in front of goal to win you a game in the 98th minute than João Pedro? Like, Stephen in the chat saying, do you guys think we're very lucky with how good the last 2.5 seasons of penalty takers in McAllister and Pedro? I think, like, yeah, sure. But like, I think it's because we also had like an almost record level of bad penalty takers, right? Like, we went from Tomer Hemed throughout the championship, who was a phenomenal penalty. I don't think he missed one for us for like 3 seasons. And then once he left, because obviously we just kind of outgrew him, like, we then went through a series of penalty situations where we were essentially a laughingstock. And then McAllister steps up, starts being able to score them, and now João Pedro is back to that level of Hemed where you don't expect to miss. And if he does get it saved, he scores the rebound anyway. I mean, the absolute scenes at the end, it was hilarious that so many people have left. Me and Craig were chatting about this just off air before we came on. The North, where I was, there was a fair few empty seats at this point because we were at 95. The East had obviously started its exodus. Boy, oh boy. Like, I couldn't imagine being in the train queue, seeing that come up on your phone. Could you two? Like, brutal.
They've got to do. Listen, I'm not going to go off on a complete tangent about this because obviously it's BS, but they've got to do something about the transport, because people need to be able to get home and it not take 4 hours, 5 hours. But at the same time, you want to stay in the stadium. It's a horrible situation because I understand the people that leave. It sucks, but I understand it, and they've got to fix that. They really have to put a monorail in. Like, just do something that makes it simpler, because it's almost like the setup is designed for people to bleed out of the stadium before full time, because if you don't, you're sticking around for a long time. And that, I think, is a contributor to the atmosphere that sometimes is less than the average. Back to the actual talking of the game. I mean, on a human level, I felt for the guy from Fulham, because my word, imagine the looks you would get in the changing room after that game. All right, mate. Yeah, come on quickly. Just see out the game. Yeah, and then you've just completely cost your team, potentially, depending on how the season plays out, like a shot at some form of European competition because of that. But for us, yeah, wonderful. We like that. I genuinely like if you really said, all right, what do you think of all this? I don't think we deserve to win that game. I really don't think we deserve to win that game. I thought we were subpar across the board for the most part, for large portions of it. The fact, again, that we were able to walk away with 3 points there is just testament to whatever spirit or something that has been created. And you've said it, Craig. I'll say it again. The best thing to happen to this team this year was losing 7-0 against Nottingham Forest. There's no doubt about it. This run of games does not happen. It doesn't happen if you lose 1-0 to Forest. It just simply doesn't. So it's weird to think. I'm not a believer in that phrase if it's always darkest before the dawn, but holy shit. I think it might actually be true in this particular instance. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. We shouldn't have won that game, right? I think on the basis of it, you got getting a last minute penalty and saying, yeah, we absolutely deserve that, or that was, fruits of our labor and the huffing and puffing. But I don't think that would have been the case. I think if we drew 1-1, I think we would have sat here on this and said that was a result that we deserved. Would we have been happy with it? No. But it would have been a result that we deserved from that performance. Luckily, and I think as Josh has said, we have players that do not give up until that final whistle is blown, right? And you've got João Pedro getting himself into those positions and using 5 subs every game to give fresh legs and really push. Some of it was laboring, sure, right? You're trying to push forward and get an attack. You're also playing against a Fulham team that is also very leggy and is already playing 5 at the back and is just sat there waiting for the draw or the final whistle to be blown. So I agree to that effect, right? You have to go and make something happen. It's tough when you've got 11 men in front of you just not doing anything. But luckily we found a way, and you turn an average performance, into 3 points, and we sit here a lot happier, right? And as we see in the games unfold with Bournemouth and Spurs drawing at the moment, and you've got Chelsea winning against Leicester, but it's tight in that sort of 4 to 8 area where everyone is sort of 3 points apart. We needed that win because, not just the performance wise, but you'd be looking at the table a lot differently and you wouldn't be seeing the table across the Twitter sphere and everything else. So, yeah, and to the penalty itself, it's never in doubt. I think Bernd Leno is a very good goalkeeper. So if it was going to be anyone to save one, it would have been him. But it's again, another great pen.
So Stephen says in the chat, weird to think 5 weeks ago people were calling for Hertz's head. I mean, I'm not going to pretend it wasn't us, right? Like we got to the end of that Forest podcast and we all were pretty much with the exception of Robin, who wanted him sacked in August. But with the rest of us three, we're pretty much in agreement that if we get dicked by Chelsea twice, a poor result against Southampton's probably it. Like
it was the Southampton game. Yeah,
we weren't on the get rid now, but we were like, this is now like we're in a very dicey situation here because we've got 2 Chelsea games and Saints. Poor results in the next 3, and we were like, how tenable is it? Like how can you stay if you then, I mean, God forbid, lost all 3 in a row? Like I still think I don't know if he could have stayed. Losing to Chelsea twice and then lose into Southampton. Like I just don't know. But here we are. We're on a 6-game win streak and everyone's Hertzler in. Lewis Dunk and it's also wonderful to know that the team are very much aware of the flip-flopping the fan base is doing. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but Dunky and Dortmund were at the darts and he had Fabian Hertzler in, cross out, cross out, in, out.
What's he doing sat at the darts with a beer?
Injured, isn't he?
Yeah, but come on.
So was Veltman. He's hurt as well.
Where's the other? I don't know. What do fit people drink? Well, I don't know.
But it gave us meme material, so I don't mind.
I suppose it did. Yeah. But everyone's now going to point to that pint now if he comes back in and wets the bed in a game. They'll be like, he wasn't even looking after himself when he was injured, was he?
Yeah, he was boozing himself up. That's why he's conceded that idiot own goal.
He's lost it. I want to go back to what you said about Man City. And you are right. Obviously, you can't. No matter what happens, it is you going to Man City, and but we're 1 point off of Manchester City after 28 games. If you'd have said this, okay, all right, let me add all this up together just to really highlight how stupid this season is.
You'd assume we're doing a title race. Let's be honest.
Right? If you said at the start of the season that this sequence of events unfolded, after 28 games, you are going to be a point below Man City. You will be basically 1 point off of Champions League football, and you've also lost 7-0 and everyone's called for your manager to be sacked. And you also went on a run of how many games without a win? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games without a win.
And you're 5 points behind Forest.
I just don't get it. The point is, though, I'm not scared of this Man City team. We've already beaten them this season. They seem very, very they're just all over the place. Like 1 week they smash Newcastle 4-0, but the week before that they get battered by Arsenal. They've lost one. So that is the only upsetting thing, is that they're due for now their win. But I'm not intimidated by this. I'm really not intimidated by this game. The way they play and the way they're attempting to play doesn't really scare me too much. And this team is on a high. Man City are rattled beyond belief. Rattled. We're the opposite. There's a sense of belief in this team that we haven't had since the De Zerbi run for Europe.
And we tend to play well against better teams, right? I admit that they're not having the best season, the worst one under Pep ever, right? But they've still got world-class players in playing what is determined to be an outdated way of playing, some would say. So, I have no reason to say, yeah, let's go and, let's bring it to them, right? Let's be proactive instead of reactive in the way that we play. But I'm also under no illusions that they could easily just completely hammer us.
Imagine if we win, though.
I know, and that's amazing, right? I think we're seeing in the chat it's basically a 6-pointer at the moment, right? You're 10 games to go until the end of the season. Like if we pick up 3 and they drop 3, and you're in that position where you are on 49 points with 9 games to go, like it is a strange season, right? Like we've been through more ups and downs this season than maybe most. But I agree we can get a result there. But I'm also, like I said, under no illusions that this is a team that is capable of battering Newcastle 4-0 and is capable of putting in performances. They're just so inconsistent at the moment that you have to take advantage of it.
We're in a whole host of 6-pointers though. Like they haven't. This has been the gauntlet, really. Chelsea 6-pointer, Bournemouth 6-pointer, Fulham 6-pointer, City 6-pointer, Villa 6-pointer. Like it's really until that point, like until the 2nd of April, every league game we're playing is essentially like the only thing that's left to be entertaining in the Premier League is this race for Europe, and like every game truly is an absolute 6-pointer because the gap we've got now on Fulham is like, it looks huge, like 6th to 10th, like 4 points. Like it's only 4 points, but like it looks massive knowing how close everyone's running. Yeah, get results against Man City and Villa, and like we're all over the place. Because after that we have a slightly easier run, right? Which we'll probably then go and mess up. But we've absolutely ran the gauntlet post Forest, and we've come up and literally haven't stopped winning. I think if we beat City at the Etihad, there's going to be this fan base is going to become almost unbearably positive, and you just know it. Like it's just going to be there's going to be something sad happen. Not long after.
I wonder at what point Robin is Hertzler in. I wonder what has to happen for him to
win the FA Cup.
Yeah, maybe
get us to a final of the FA Cup.
I think Europa League, and they'll be happy. I think any sort of, I guess, European competition this year is a huge success. I don't think anyone
my gauge.
Yeah,
for where we're at. Right now, so 5th is going to be Champions League football, right? Correct. So you've got 5 points separating 5th to 10th, and Palace aren't going to be that far behind based on how they're playing at the moment either, right? It is insane how this works. So Chelsea seemingly are just about to just squeeze out a win against Leicester. Chelsea are a crap team, right? If they're going to play Arsenal away next weekend, if you put your money on Arsenal winning that game, that means Chelsea will remain on 49 points. If we were to do the thing against City, that would put us on 49 points. That would make us joint fourth, essentially. Just the difference being on goal difference against the side that we smashed twice recently. I want to get carried away with it because we don't know how long this will last. Because if we lose against City, we lose against Villa, something bad happens against Palace. Suddenly we start to go, oh God, well, maybe we want the Conference League would be great for us. That would be awesome because we get to go smash up some random team in Azerbaijan. But you know,
we've got a cup quarter final in amongst that too, which we're one game away from Wembley there, which is a whole other thing in and of itself. And I mean, if we were having to go back to the City ground, I'd feel like we were just absolutely screwed. But it's a real exercising a demons moment, that game at the Amex on that Saturday night. And I absolutely am not going to think that Forest are going to come and do us there like I normally would. I think there's going to be a bit of an atmosphere in the air there, like if something special is going to happen. It could all go to shit, right? Like Sheffield Wednesday playoff, that first 45 minutes was never seen or heard anything like it at the Amex, except for that Chelsea game. And then we ended up losing anyway, so it didn't matter. But I think there will be something. I think it will be a bit of a cauldron against Forest, knowing what it is. Whether we win, lose, or draw at the Etihad. Now, if we win, it's going to be even more dialed up, right? I don't think we all know it's going to be absolutely mental. But I think it's one of those things that we hit the semi-final there as well, and it's going to get really out of hand. People are going to be very excited indeed. And Palace have a tough run, by the way, from now to the end of the season compared to their last 6 or 7. They've had a couple of really nice games back to back, and they've won most of them, right? Which is what you need to do if you want to try and keep in touch with that European chasers. But they've got a couple of rough games coming up.
After Southampton, that is.
After Southampton. And let's just hope that makes a difference for them. But I mean, Brentford are right behind them, and you never know. Brentford are absolutely prone to just going on a random run of Fulham and winning 4, and all of a sudden they'll be dicking around in those areas. So it's all so close in that group. It just reminds me of the Championship. It's getting to a point where there are so many evenly matched teams in the mid-table Premier League that we are. I hate it, but I feel like we're in a situation where we will be going to Spurs on the last day of the season, and you will be seeing a live table update, and every single team from 10th to 5th will spend moments in the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League where results change, and we're all just dying watching this moment change over and over again. No. And I just hope we come out on the winning end of it, because it just looks like doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Man City or Fulham, no one can get too far ahead of anyone. It's just so, it must be so entertaining when you're doing well, like it is for us now. But for a neutral, it's great. For us, it's going to get more and more stressful as the season comes to a close.
Yeah, I don't want that to be the thing. I'm fully hoping that Spurs will have imploded at that point in a bigger way than they already have done, and the game is absolutely meaningless for them. Truly, just nothingness. But
and with Liverpool playing the kids the game before, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're begging for. It is hilarious to look at the table right now and see 1 point between Spurs, Manchester United, and West Ham, and that's 13th to 16th. I tell you what, though, talking about, I know we're kind of complete off piste here. Talking about fixtures, Forest have got a really kind remaining set of fixtures, and they're already doing the unthinkable. So they play. Here's the list of games they got to play: Ipswich, rubbish; Man United, rubbish; Villa, bit rubbish; Everton, rubbish; Spurs, rubbish; Brentford, not great; Palace, Leicester, rubbish; West Ham, rubbish; Chelsea, rubbish. They could very, very feasibly finish second. There is a future at the end of this season in a handful of months where Nottingham Forest and Brighton and Hove Albion qualify for the Champions League in the same season. One of the teams having beaten the other 7-0, and potentially us knocking them out of the FA Cup and going on a little run to the final. It's pure entropy. It's pure chaos. This is. I genuinely think this might be the best way to watch football. Not for your heart, but this is the best way to witness a season unfold. There's no mediocrity going on here. It's just amazing or terrible, and that's pretty much it. I love it personally.
Yeah, it's nice. I think you had this sort of, the media imposed Big Six, and it's just shot to pieces, right? Like you got teams that are able to beat anyone on any given day. You got Bournemouth beat Forest 5-0, then Forest go and beat us 7-0, and then we go and beat Bournemouth twice. And it's like, I have no idea who's good and who's bad. And I think that's what we said since the start of the season. It's like, I unless we were 25 games in, I didn't really understand where we were in terms of the gauge of good and bad. Like you've got the positions at the start of the season, but I was like, I have no idea where we should be. Like and I think, Josh, you said this before. I remember you saying if we were 5th or 15th, I would have said correct in both instances. So it's wild, but we're in the mix, right? You're 6 on the bounce. You've got a really good chance of getting to Wembley again, which is amazing. And you're still 6th in the table after 28 games. That's when we sat here before the season even started, brand new 31-year-old manager, brought in a bunch of new players, completely overhauled the squad. We said 10th or 11th is perfect, right? Like we build for this season and we really go for it next season. That hasn't happened.
Stephen in the chat saying what would be the bigger achievement? It's such an obvious answer, by the way, Stephen. I assume it's bait, but Liverpool winning the league and Champions League, or Brighton making the Champions League and winning the FA Cup. That all of a sudden that thrusts Fabian Hurstler into a manager of the season conversation, doesn't it? Champions League and FA Cup in. I'm sorry, a 32-year-old was 31-year-old manager.
First season.
In his first season, it is graduating from Bundesliga 2, taking a Brighton team with about 8 new players, like gelling them all together and bringing a Champions League and FA Cup trophy. Like, you may as well just end me after that. Like, it doesn't get any better as a Brighton fan, I don't think.
Hey, here's a dumb question. I can't believe I'm even asking this question. Would Champions League be a mistake? Like, would it be a little too much? As in,
not in the current format.
I suppose, but I don't know. I guess purely just for the experience, you'd want it. Purely for the experience. But it depends if you're serious about going into one of these competitions with aspirations to win it or not. Because feasibly, how we play, the quality of squad, the investment we'd get in the summer, something like the Europa League is not beyond belief for us going on a run in that. Conference League especially, like the quality of teams in that competition is absolutely offensive. Winnable. We're never winning the Champions League, right, in the next decade. But I don't know whether you'd prefer. Would you prefer just being in the league stage of the Champions League or going on a knockout run in the Europa? Like, what's the preference?
Champions League.
Just for the music, really, isn't it?
We got to play in the Champions League. Like, what the hell? Like, how many teams get to ever say that? How many fans of any team get to say we want to watch us play in the Champions League? I don't care. Like, and with the format now, you're also guaranteed to play at least one real big boy at home or away.
You got 6 different teams that, again, the Europa League was amazing, right? But you played the same teams sort of twice each. But the way that the league format is that you play 6 different teams, isn't it? Or something silly like that.
Yeah.
And they're all seeded, right? Like, I reckon you could do what Villa did this year and get through that stage comfortably and get into the 32. Because, you look at the state of the 8 teams that didn't get through the league format for the Champions League, like, they all were on, 3 points. So...
God, it's just...
The only funny thing with that is that Villa may end up missing out on European football altogether next season because they are going so deep and it's really starting to hurt their depth now, which just goes to show that whoever you are, unless you are a Man City or a Chelsea or a Arsenal that can basically have a reserve team of decent players, like, you are going to struggle in any format of European football.
Well, everyone always seems to get duped by Unai Emery. Oh boy, what a great manager. Yeah, he does the same little parlor trick every single time. He dumps the league and goes into the knockout stage and puts everything into the cup competitions. That's how he operates. He does that almost every single year without fail, and everyone sort of forgets that was his Villarreal team. Every time they tried to do it, they'd qualify for the competition, try and go deep in the competition, they'd finish 7th. That's just basically how he operates. But yeah, they're struggling right now with that setup. I don't know. I just had a thought occur to me with, can you imagine just we'll just play at the Bernabeu or the Camp Nou when it's sort of rebuilt just on a Wednesday night. Adam Webster is just stood there in the Bernabeu. Can you imagine that? Because it's feasible. That's the thing that could happen.
It is.
In less than a year. Adam Webster has stood there under the bright lights of the Camp Nou.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Lewandowski.
And having him in his back pocket as well, putting in one of the best performances of his career and just keeping quiet the entire Barcelona front line.
Lamine Yamal being marked by Adam Webster or Pervis Estupinian is enough to send me into a coma.
Mbappe being made totally irrelevant by Van Hecke, just forever, like getting the statue built at 23 years old. Yeah. I mean, as Mongo Halfbrain, what a great name, by the way. What a username. Says that obviously Champions League vastly increases our chances of keeping our best players. Is Carlos Baleba or Kaoru Mitoma going anywhere this summer if we make the Champions League? No. I would put I'll put my house on the fact that there's not enough money on the planet that is going to have Kaoru Mitoma or Carlos Baleba leave this summer if we make the Champions League.
Disagree.
Who is going to come in?
They take the money. They take the money every time. And we always say this about
January, though.
I know, but he didn't want to go and play in bloody Saudi Arabia. He wants to.
What if he doesn't want to go and play for Juventus? If he wants to go one more year.
But another team can come in and basically say, we're going to triple your salary and you get to play in the same competition. You want to do that? They all do it. I know we always fall for this. We always fall for it. Like, nah, they wouldn't do it. They all do it. Every single one of them. They drive past Stamford Bridge. Oh, they see one of the crappiest, dumpiest stadiums in England. And they think, you know what? This is where dreams are made. Oh, and this massive check.
Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my goodness. On that
he just won. He just scored the winner, didn't he? He just got Chelsea the 3 points as well. Little scumbag.
It is annoying. He's a good player, isn't it? Like, yeah, it does annoy me a lot, especially
with him at left back as well. Yeah,
what 5 goals from left back this season? Like, fucking annoying.
Yes, you hate him when he's on another team, but when he's on your team, he's a little passion player, isn't he?
The only good part is he always sucks against us.
Yeah,
he really absolutely can't cope. Yeah.
Rattled.
For a guy that lives to rattle others, like he's absolutely like the kryptonite is now coming to the Amex. Like it's like his own games used against him, and he can't handle it all, which just makes us worse. Like I think that's him being as poor as he is makes the fan base at the Amex like going to a totally different mood than any other game, because like it's now just we know Kukurea is going to lose his mind and do something stupid every game, so now we're going to do it. Like it's this weird symbiotic relationship we've got going on. I love it. Absolutely love it. Right, before we end, we do have to go back to man of the match, despite the fact that we've gone on about 25-minute tangent. So who do you guys have as your man of the match going into that one? As you said, you could easily have had a couple on there as well as none of them because it was so like average. So we'll start with you, Adam, because it looks like you're about to go for it. So I'd love to hear who you got.
I mean, I'm going to stick with Van Hecke because, again, despite the mistake, he redeems himself with the goal. And purely anecdotally, I remember him just smashing into a bunch of tackles and winning the ball and running up the pitch and starting to create play multiple times. I kept thinking, oh, Van Hecke's good. And so I'll just give it to him through no data or stats or anything like that, just purely vibes.
Same vibes as me, but for João Pedro, I think. It's just, Warrior, we've already spoken about him, so I won't go into too much. But I think either of those players you can easily give it to. But what about yourself, Josh?
Yeah, it's tough. I think they're both really up there. I'm probably going to go with Webster though, just to give someone different, because the step up has been tough, and he's literally rode it out to a 6-game win streak. Like, and
insane.
Why not? Like, outside of that one moment yesterday, which wasn't his fault, he was absolutely not at fault for anything that led to that goal either. By the way, he literally did the only thing a normal centre half would do and desperately try and make cover at the last second, because he was like, how the fuck has he got through 3 people? Like, he was not at fault for the goal at all. And the rest of the game, he literally didn't put a foot wrong, except for, I think, one wayward pass that was then cut out by him and Baleba. So he made up for it in the end anyways. So just for the sake of having someone different, we'll cover it with 3 there.
Well, the chat have voted for the set piece coach and the ref as the other 2 options, which are not bad shouts, to be honest with you. I was again, by the way, I know it's a very brief outing. Sorry, Craig. Matt, I thought Weaver was again looking comfortable, continues to look comfortable. I'm not sad if we start Gomez or Weaver in any game to complement Carlos Baleba. I'm completely comfortable with that now.
Our centre midfield is stacked. Like, especially with Gomez coming in now and being as well as he is and as good as he is. You've got just a unbelievable amount of talent in there, even with Ayari being the surprise this year, but with Baleba, Hinshelwood, O'Reilly, Gomez, Weaver,
Milner.
No. But yeah, it's that one area where you can just be like, okay, that's fine. Like, you can go and put Hinshelwood at right back, because I know that we'll have another centre mid that will do the job properly. Yeah, it's good. We didn't speak about the ref, and long may it continue. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I think I thought it lost his cards in the first half. I thought
let everything go.
I think there was a lot of times where he really could have brought out a yellow card for a few people. Quite a few for Fulham and once or twice for us. Just some cynical challenges going in and nothing got booked. But other than that, I don't think he got much wrong at all. The linesman flagged for both offsides correctly as well. Unbelievable. How often does that happen? Like, the linesman actually dares put his flag up. But he did and was right both times. So fair play to him. So yeah, overall, like, it was good. And they gave the penalty without VAR having to step in. It was the correct decision. They gave the penalty. VAR took 10 seconds to look at it because it was such an easy one to give. But from his position with all the bodies in the way, you never know. But he actually nailed it. So yeah, fair play.
Pretty nuts. Hey, just to give you some hope going into this Man City game, go look at a form table if you want to give yourself some hopium. We're 3rd in the form table in the Premier League. Liverpool top, Palace 2nd, us 3rd. Manchester City are 14th. We're going to lose 5-0.
On that note, we will see you guys next week for the post-match review of Manchester City and the look ahead to the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. Have a wonderful week. I hope it's as nice here as it's been all week this week. It's been beautiful. But have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks all.
Cheers.